Scott, you're the president of Sportsnet. What's your reaction to this?
Well, the league reached out to us earlier today to let us know. And first off, I think it's a good thing that they've put this to rest at this point, because they don't want it to be a distraction during what is going to be, I think, a terrific playoff run. Something that's not often said is that the NHL is the only major league in the world that has taken a break in the middle of their season to go to the Olympics. And taking a break for 2.5 weeks has a huge impact. I heard you talking earlier about whether or not this is a good decision or a bad decision financially long term. Certainly in the short term for the owners, they clearly think it's a good decision to stay, play their games, and not take a break in a crucial time in the season. As fans, they may be disappointed, but as owners, I think it's the right short-term financial decision for sure.
No, it's the kind of thing we talked about in Scott, in that sense that if you're a fan, you want to see best on best. But as I said before, as one owner said to me, I understand that you're a fan, it's my money. And that's what he said to me, and he said that he feels that if I was to poll most owners, they would feel the same way.
Yeah, I was at the Board of Governors meeting just at Christmas when this was discussed, and if you took a vote then, it probably would have been almost unanimous, if not unanimous. And don't forget that at Sochi, was it 7 or 8 players were out with injuries after the Olympics that impacted teams that were perhaps going to the playoffs.
Down the road, could you see, and maybe this is looking a little too far, but I'll ask you because it was a PA and it was an NHL initiative, could you see the World Cup of Hockey going up against the Olympics for 2 weeks in the middle of an Olympic year?
I think you'd be looking at the same issue. Why would you take 2.5 weeks off even for your own event? I think if the league was going to do another World Cup, they would do it in September when it makes sense. You look at, just from our standpoint, selfish standpoint from television, to take 2.5 weeks off of showing NHL hockey games during a playoff drive is difficult for us, and it hurts the momentum. So I understand their point of view.
Let's bring in Chris Johnson. Chris, sorry to cut you off a few seconds ago, but you're going to see some players start coming into the arena shortly in Buffalo as you're down there for the Leafs and the Sabres. How do you think they're going to react, or how are they reacting when they're getting this news?
Well, there's 2 young stars that I'm sure will get a lot of attention in Austin Matthews and Jack Eichel, 2 of the players who played for that very popular Team North America at the World Cup of Hockey earlier this year, and they're going to be upset. I don't see any other way that they wouldn't be disappointed to have the chance to go. I mean, certainly more than perhaps even some of the players that have been in the past who've had an opportunity to do it. I think that the young players have grown up with it. These guys are both about 20 years old. The entire life that they've been around, the entire time they've been hockey players, NHLers have been at the Olympic Games, and they're not going to have an opportunity this time. I would say the one positive side for both of them is we both expect them to have long careers, and 2022 at this point still remains a possibility.
2022, you just mentioned it. Let's bring up this graphic. We just got a statement from the NHL, their statement on the Olympics, and I want to read this part to you. It's about 22. A number of months have now passed and no meaningful dialogue has materialized. Instead, the IOC has now expressed the position that the NHL's participation in Beijing 2022 is conditioned on our participation in South Korea in 2018. And the NHLPA has now publicly confirmed that it has no interest or intention of engaging in any discussion that might make Olympic participation more attractive to the clubs. Elliot, does that take 2022 right off the table?
No, like I said, I think China is a completely different discussion. Look, the NHL just came back from there. They're putting games there next season. The Players Association, I think at one point considered not going unless the Olympic issue was settled. They agreed to go because China is so big. I think while the players are going to be disappointed about this, I think everybody realizes that that is an opportunity you're not going to pass up. You're laying the groundwork. The Chinese government wants you there. The Chinese government wants to be a winter sports power in 2022. Everybody here is making sort of a financial commitment to growing the game in China. There's sponsors there. There was a sponsor last week who made a $7 million a year deal with the National Hockey League. I don't see, even though at times this has tried to be tied into 2018, I don't see it. I think that's a different animal.
They already have a broadcast deal in China for NHL games, and in fact, more people watch Saturday night hockey, Hockey Night in Canada, in China than in Canada because of the sheer numbers they have over there. So it's an important market for them.
And just one thought, guys, as far as I'm concerned, that I know and I understand what you're saying, Elliot, that I'm sure the government in China will have a heavy hand in terms of what they want, but the IOC is going to have to come around here. I know the players are disappointed in the league right now, but they should be disappointed in the IOC for at least not trying to bridge something with the National Hockey League. And I think that we're going to have to see what happens in South Korea before moving forward. If this thing ends up being a complete disaster for the IOC, hopefully their tune will change by then and revisit bringing the NHLers back to China.
And I think that's an important point. The way the IOC negotiated this, their first stance was it was going to be a step backwards financially for the NHL. And you can imagine if I negotiated with you that my first offer is that you're taking a big pay cut. Your attitude towards negotiating with me is going to be significantly different. And I think that was a strategic mistake by the IOC. I think it frankly angered a lot of the owners, and the owners were less interested in negotiating with them because they said, if that's your attitude, that you don't want us even enough to pay us the expenses and insurance that you did last time in Sochi, why are we shutting down our league for 2.5 weeks to go?
There is no question the IOC thought the NHL would cave to pressure. I don't see how anybody could even.
Did they know
that.
Gary Bettman well enough, given what happened in the last few years?
I think they thought that they would really cave, that they would give in at the end of the day, and obviously they haven't.
So who's to blame, I guess? Is it the IOC? Is it everybody? Would you guys point the finger at the IOC more?
You know, I do. Like, I think you can't help but look at it and say, who's making money off this? And they are. I mean, look, like I said, as a fan today, I'm disappointed. I am. I want to see the best players at the Olympics. I've been fortunate enough. I've been to, I think, 4 Olympics to cover hockey. But you know what? I understand the owner's position that they're putting up all the risk. Chris?
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, Elliot. I was just going to say the one thing that's in my mind is I'm wondering where the IOC is going to stand on this. Will this maybe elicit a better offer? It seems like a long shot, a Hail Mary. I believe the NHL is very forthright with its intentions that it's done, but you know, perhaps there's still a way forward if they do change their tune and come with a better offer here.
So we've been told we're waiting on a statement from the NHLPA. We're not sure when that's going to come down, but I mean, do you guys envision this as a major negotiating point, Elliot, going forward in CBA, as in our participation in the Olympics has to be guaranteed? Is this going to get nasty?
I would think it would come up. Nick?
You know what, guys? I think the NHL and the NHLPA missed an opportunity to come together. I would have loved to seen Gary, Bill Daly, Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, all together, all meeting the IOC. That, to me, it's not one. It shouldn't be the PA against the NHL moving forward here on the Olympics. It should be both of them together. Like, they're partners through the CBA. They should have been partners right from the get-go, knocking on the IOC's door, saying, "How do you look, Connor McDavid? Look at the best 18, 19-year-old hockey player in the world, and you tell him you don't want him when your Olympics should be best on best." That's what you guys have promoted. That's the way they should do it moving forward. You
know, I completely agree with that. Nick is 100% right, and I think that the one thing that this was missing, that Sochi had, for example, was the government. There's no question in my mind that the Russian government wanted this to happen, and it moved people along. And that's why I look at China and I say it's going to be a different animal than here. I just wonder if in South Korea they didn't see hockey as important to the overall situation as Russia did and China looks to.
And because the league is now the group that have closed the door and made this official, it's easy to say, hey, the league's the villain here. But the IOC had an opportunity to negotiate better. The PA had an opportunity to sit down with the league and not extend. There was misinformation that Gary was looking for an extension to the CBA. What he was in fact looking for was to close the reopener that comes up in a couple of years, so there would be enough employment certainty for the next few years to be able to do a World Cup, an Olympics, a Ryder Cup event. So, you know, it's easy to say, hey, this is the league making the decision. It's not. It's, as Nick said, all 3 parties, 4 parties, if you include the PA, could have come together and said, hey, this is what how important we think hockey is to the Olympics.